I drove right past it. Southern portion of Death Valley. It was the end of the day, and I just kept on going. So I have to back up a little bit because to understand how you missed a canyon in Death Valley, you have to understand how the day looked like before the miss. So a few years back, yeah, I'm at home and I'm watching some TV, and I stumbled upon a movie called Find Me, just about a guy searching for his friend and going to all sorts of places. One of the spots he went to was Sidewinder Canyon in Death Valley. There's a scene in that movie that shows the slot canyon, the way the rocks look, the way the sun's coming through. It just looked extra amazing. I watched that scene and I thought, I need to know where that place is. And I had actually never been to Death Valley. I had a road trip coming up that was going to put me in an area of California near Lake Havasu. I was able to plan a road trip cutting right through Death Valley. I invited Mugshot. I was actually meeting my dad and my sister down in Arizona, and we set out. So because I had never been to Death Valley and it was going to be right there, I opted to go through the park. A friend of mine had recommended I check out Eureka Dunes, so I went ahead and did that. And then from Eureka Dunes the next day, I had to drive essentially from the northern end of the park all the way through the park to the southern end of the park, with the first half of that being on dirt roads. So leaving Eureka Dunes, we dirt roaded it down to Ube Crater, and where you finally hit some pavement. We ended up going by Stovewell, and we worked our way, seeing some of the sights as we went through the park. So really, starting about midway through the park, as you drive through areas of the park like Badwater, there are just a ton of sights to see along the way. So Mugshot and I couldn't help but stop and go look at some of the sights, go walk through some of the other canyons, and go walk out onto Badwater. So we weren't really getting through the park very fast, and it's a pretty big park. So by the time we got into the area where Sidewinder was supposed to be, the sun was already going down. If there was a sign, I didn't see it as I was driving south. End of the day, bad lighting, no sign I can see. I just kept going south. The only reason I knew I'd missed it is because I didn't see it, and we were getting toward the southern end of the park. And I had actually kind of picked out a road that we were gonna go sleep on, a dirt road at the southern end of the park, but that was going to be past Sidewinder Canyon, and we were coming up on that road. So I had missed the canyon, and we just, due to time, had to keep going. This is the story of going back for it and what was actually in there. So that night, Mugshot and I ended up camping on a dirt road. The next day, we had to wake up and we worked our way down to Parker, Arizona, where I met up with my dad, my sister. I spent the next couple days thinking about it. I was watching out for the sign. I just didn't see it. At some point, you do the math and you realized you passed it. We were on a 1,400-mile road trip. Missing one stop wasn't the end of the world, but this one stuck with me more than I thought it would. Mugshot was fine with it. She has hiked a lot, long sections of the PCT. Missing one canyon wasn't that big a deal to her. We were in Parker. I was meeting my dad and my sister. We were there just for the weekend. When I was in Parker, I couldn't let it go. I wanted to still do that hike. There was other reasons for the road trip. We were visiting some land and doing other adventures. But I had to go home, and why not drive through Death Valley? I think I just wasn't ready to write it off. When we were in Parker, we all met for dinner. My dad and my sister stayed at a hotel there. Mugshot and I were sleeping out of the Forerunner in a spot just outside of the land. I met up with my dad in the morning. My sister and him drove out, met up with Mugshot and I. We started working our way out to that land. We had a successful trip. At some point, we all had lunch, and it was time to go home. My dad and my sister were catching a flight out of Palm Springs, and Mugshot and I had decided to drive back home through Las Vegas, primarily to save some money on the gas. And that would put us in a good spot to start heading west, where we could cut through Death Valley and I could go back through Sidewinder Canyon. We were heading home anyways, so routing back through the southern portion of Death Valley, it wasn't a stretch. It was a slight detour on the way home. So, yeah, that's what we did. Yeah, that day, Mugshot and I drove north into Vegas. From Vegas, we went over to Red Rock. Our plan was to try to sleep in Red Rock somewhere. At the same time, I had Sidewinder on my mind, and I thought, we could just put some miles in between us and Vegas, and I bet we'll find some camping as we start heading west. It turns out I just kept going, and we drove to the southern entrance of Death Valley. I was thinking about camping on that same road that I camped in earlier, but we found a different road to camp in. No campground, no services, just us in the desert. I wanted to be near the trailhead in the morning so we could get there before the heat of the day. Mugshot and I usually go for coffee first thing in the morning, but this morning we woke up and moved out of our campsite and got as close as we could to Sidewinder before eventually pulling over and making some coffee. We still had trouble finding the parking spot. I was looking on all trails and I could see where the map was, highlighting the trail, but that was like off of the road quite a bit. And I'm looking for signs, but once again, I'm still not seeing any signs. There's no sign saying Sidewinder Canyon is coming up. So I could tell that we're in the area, but I'm still not seeing anything. At some point, we finish up and we actually considered hiking from there and started walking a little bit and then noticed the sign, noticed the road. It was right there. Once you see it, it's easy to see, but I'm telling you, I wasn't seeing it. I'm glad I had the app. The turnoff is not obvious. There's a small brown sign. If you're not watching for it, or if you avert your eyes slightly, you'll probably miss it. We ended up driving over to the parking spot, parking our car, and making our way over to Sidewinder Canyon. You have to work your way around over to the wash. The wash opens up pretty fast, and for the first 100 yards, you can already see the walls starting to rise. I had no idea how far back it went. There is actually another canyon in the area that doesn't have all the side slot canyons. I did run into somebody who had gone the wrong direction. So you work your way, leaving the parking lot, and fortunately there were actually some arrows on the ground, and the trail, relatively obvious to find, but like I said, there are two canyons. A slight rise in elevation, you start working your way into the canyon, and the walls start rising up pretty quickly. The main canyon itself is actually pretty wide, and it goes back at least a couple miles. As you're working your way up to the canyon, it rises. You don't necessarily realize how much it does rise, but if you turn around, you can get a good view of Badwater. I didn't have a map showing me where all the slot canyons were. I just had a map showing where the main canyon was. So slowly, the first slot canyon sort of came up on the left, and I went to go check that one out. The first canyon was pretty cool. I really didn't go back that far. Mugshot and I were on our road trip, so I did only have so much time to check out each canyon. And so we went into this first one. It looked cool, but I only went back so far. It didn't seem like it was one of the main slot canyons, and there was a lot of crumbly rocks. So we kept going. After checking out that first canyon, we just kept going up the main Sidewinder Canyon and looking for some features off to the side. We would explore some of these features, go down some of the canyons. I wasn't sure how long they were, and I did want to check out as many as I could. So at some point, after maybe checking out one or two of the canyons, Mugshot and I decided to walk as far as we could down the main canyon and sort of see where that one goes, and then work our way back and check out the slot canyons on the way back. That way we could sort of evaluate, do we want to look at that canyon? Do we have enough time for that particular canyon? As the heat of the day was coming, we were on a road trip. This was just a stop, not a destination. So we only gave ourselves so much time to check this place out. It's a out and back about maybe 2 miles in, 2 miles out, but with all the slot canyons, who knows how many miles you could actually cover walking all over Sidewinder Canyon. It could be a cool thing to check out, and maybe next time I'm there, I'll plan to spend the day. You could really spend the entire day just going from slot canyon to slot canyon, and really trying to get to the end of each of the slot canyons would be really fun. We did make it to the end. That was cool. As with a lot of these trails, when you get to the end, it's not always the coolest part. So it wasn't necessarily always the goal when we started these things. Sometimes you get to the end and it's another rock. This is the last one. You could probably stay in there for hours. I would have enjoyed spending the entire day at Sidewinder Canyon, but at some point we needed to start heading back to the car. At first, it's just a wash, rocky, wide, and straightforward. Then about halfway through the canyon, even the main canyon starts tightening up, and you walk through. After making our way into the main part of the canyon for a little bit, we started noticing more and more of the slot canyons. We'd go into one slot canyon, come back out, and then there'd be another one right there, and then another one. So it wasn't just one canyon, it was a whole system. I wasn't aware of that when I first got there. I was looking for the one canyon that was in the movie. I don't think I ever found that particular canyon, but I did enjoy exploring all of them. We worked our way back the same way we came in. The day was starting to heat up, and it was time to get back in the car, get back on the road trip, go home. So it was great to have been able to make my way out to Sidewinder Canyon. It wasn't anything too amazing, and it's a relatively easy adventure to go on. And I'm okay with easy adventures. Not everything needs to be a difficult, giant task that I need to overcome. This one was easy to get. It just took some time, a little bit of planning, and a little bit of effort. And anybody who's visiting Death Valley could end up at the Sidewinder Canyon. This was my first visit to Death Valley. It definitely won't be my last. From the road, you'd never know the canyon was there. It disappears into the landscape. Nothing really announces that anything cool is there. That's why it's really easy just to drive right by it. You don't notice it from the roadway. No indication, just the desert. That's kind of the point.